Have you had a chance to go camping this summer or in your backyard? Just look at the night sky. And if you have, you probably know that if you gaze up the stars long enough, you can't help but start to wonder about the universe. How far does it go? How infinite it is? Why is it expanding? What it is expanding into? All about the stuff you can't see in space between the stars, the dark energy, the dark matter that's everywhere. Today's guest is going to be giving us some information about the space as she is a researcher into space and universe. So, thank you so much for being with us today, Anushka. And it's a pleasure to have you. And you have inspired a lot of people with your own career and your story. So, this is a small informative session that I'm looking forward to that will create awareness amongst people and will help them too. So,
Right.
that as a kid, whenever we go out and we see around, gaze up to the stars and we look up and we keep thinking that what are these? How many are these? And there are
Right.
various questions that comes to our mind. So one of the things as we grew up, one of the things that I also had in my mind was what happens to space time when any cosmic object collides?
All right. First of all, I would like to tell you interesting facts about space-time. So the space-time, this concept is actually it exists in the space. Space-time fabric, it is more known by this name. It is just like the fabric. If we consider that there's a latex fabric and we put a heavy metal ball in that fabric, it is attached in a circular way. And when we put some heavy object in the middle, you will see that fabric goes down,
Yeah,
right? And due to the fabric, if we put some balls around that huge metal ball, all those small balls will revolve or go around the
right.
big metal ball.
Yeah,
And the shape would be like something like this.
right.
Yeah, so this is the very basic concept of space-time fabric. And when some collision happens or massive amounts of energy get generated, it causes the formation of waves and it also creates vibration. So when
Okay.
we talk about space-time fabric, we just have to assume it to be the fabric, and then we would do some activities with that fabric with some metal balls or put some balls around it. What would happen with that normal latex fabric is something similar which will happen in the space,
Right.
resulting this result the collision, it results into some enormous fireworks, and it also creates ripples over the space-time fabric, which
Okay.
affects the gravity and also the dark matter in space. And when space-time expands or when the fabric expands, it also contracts. It depends on the momentum of object. It also depends on the movement of objects. And I would like to tell you something interesting about that. When Isaac Newton was studying about this subject, studying about space and how things work, he thought that time, only time is like time is like an arrow which is
Yeah.
fired through a bow, and it travels in a direct straight direction, and it never deviates from its path. To Newton, it seemed that Earth, Jupiter, or any other planet, everywhere in the space, there is same time and there is no change in time. According to him, what was not absolute was light, speed of light.
Oh, okay.
And yes, he also thought that time has some absolute motion, which meant that nothing in the universe had a constant speed,
Ah,
even light.
okay.
That is what he thought. And when he was applying his theory, he was able to assume that speed of time varies, then light must be constant. And with this thought, he came up with his own theory. But after few years or after few decades, Albert Einstein came up with his own theory that time is not absolute and time is completely dependent on where the time is flowing. According to Einstein, time was just like a river, ebbing and flowing according to the region, where at some regions time is very fast and at some regions time is very slow. And he also said that time is affected due to gravity. You might observe that we face different time on Earth,
Right.
whereas if we talk about black holes and the region around black holes, there is different type of time over there because black hole and time around black hole is greatly influenced by gravity or force of gravity.
Right.
And this is how after decades after Einstein postulated his theory, and scientists were studying on his theory. Scientists also agreed that yes, Einstein is right, time is not absolute, and time varies according to the region.
Right.
Later, in Einstein's theory of general relativity, he also said that we are aware of only three dimensions, isn't it? But the fourth dimension, which exists in our universe, is space time. He said that space and time are not separate, but they are the one whole thing, and it is the fourth dimension of our space, which is holding or which is directing all the laws, which is directing all the phenomenon in the space.
Oh,
So
that's
this is the
interesting.
entire concept behind space-time fabric. There is
Okay.
a common experiment which I also did for my students to whom I delivered a lecture. I just attached a fabric to a vessel and then I used some tooth and some magnets to show them how it would be actually working in the space.
Right. Yeah. Got
When
it.
yes, even in our solar system, the mass of the sun is 98% in our solar system, and rather and other 2% remaining is distributed among this planet. So that is how dense sun is, and the reason that all the planets are revolving around sun without falling off their orbit is that sun's gravity is influencing them, and where sun is located, the space time is very condensed over there so that planets don't fall off their orbit and they revolve around sun like they're revolving from billion years.
Right. Yeah. Understood.
Yeah,
So this is very interesting to know that some areas that as humans we don't know, and there are new findings,
yeah,
there are going to be failures, there are going to be new experiments again to be conducted. So what exactly
yes.
inspired you to choose this field, and what are the struggles that you're facing in this field?
This thing, curiosity, in astronomy or astrophysics, curiosity has no end. And the only way one can study this subject is due to curiosity.
Right.
Because when we are curious to find something, when we are always in search of the questions, when we have lots of questions, we always have that thirst of finding out answer.
Yeah.
And in astronomy, not just in astronomy, in science particularly, every answer has tons of questions behind that. And technically speaking, we all are made of stardust. The
Yeah.
elements which we are composed of, similarly, the elements which make those elements make the planets or cosmic objects up there. And I was very intrigued when I found out questions and when I was very curious to find out answers for that. So that is how I made my interest in astronomy. I used to read books. I read many books, and I also have many books to read. When we read books, we understand that there's a lot more explored by scientists and by people referring to astronomy, but there's a lot more which is yet to be explored. Let's consider extraterrestrial life. We still are finding out how do we track the civilization out there, and how do we proceed more than Milky Way galaxy. Yes, we did get the images of nebula, and we are able to find out images, nebula, different galaxies through our telescopes, but we still haven't developed the potential to actually move farther than our solar system. There are
Right.
like many problems. We need a lot of fuel, we need some resources, we need more economy, and there's a lot to it. But if
Right.
you're talking about my challenges, what is life without challenges, don't you
Right.
think?
Right.
And yes, I do like accepting challenges, fighting with them, and moving forward. One thing that has occurred to me is that we should not believe in hype. Like when we are on the top of our career, when we are actually excelling in our career, I've realized that it is also important to consider or to acknowledge the downfall or the failures which we are going to face further. And
Right.
there are lots of challenges, like I have to multitask a lot. I have to manage my responsibilities in different organizations. I have to manage my work in home, with my academics, manage my studies, manage my work, help my family members, give them time, manage my social media accounts. Like there's a lot. So for me, 24 hours are never enough. And when I'm lost in doing all my work and job, I don't realize when time flows by. And I always realize that time is not absolute and it also never waits for anyone.
Right, right. So that's
Yes,
actually something very interesting, and that's an inspiration. So it's
yes.
nice to know, and you have taken your
Yeah.
curiosity to the next level.
When I started studying this subject, I didn't know how to start and from where to start. Like which book should I pick up or to whom should I reach out to who will guide me that these are the steps to study this subject and you will have to travel through this path and you will reach your ultimate goal. That really did not happen. And I also don't have any godfather or a mentor who will guide me throughout the way. I paved my own path and I created my own path. Yes, like sometimes I would spend hours researching on internet about books, about resources, about how to read, about what to learn from this area of knowledge. But it still kept going on and I always believed in myself and I thought that I do have potential to achieve what I really want and that is how I started. Another thing that contributed to my progression was that I started writing articles and people encouraged me a lot when they used to read my articles. Also, it was pandemic by then when people were free to read articles and all. And then I started writing articles, I started writing poems, blogs, conducted sessions. So people's support and their encouragement is something which really helped me to keep moving forward. Also, I've met amazing intellectual people with immense knowledge on platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, who share their knowledge with me, and I also learn a lot from them.
Yeah, right. So it's actually about the positives that you see, and then you move forward, motivating yourself instead of seeing the
Right.
negatives and the loopholes, maybe whatever is there in the system, or you see the positive and then you go ahead. That's very nice to know.
Yes.
So you were just talking about the galaxies and the different things in the galaxies, right? So one thing that I want to ask is, why do galaxies differ so much in shape and the sizes?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So, galaxies are found by clouds of stars and by leftover remnants. They are also formed by some space debris which swirls around in the space. And as these clouds get closed, gravity started its role to integrate them into one another and knit them into some large spinning pack. So that is how we see different shapes of galaxies. And based on this size and based on the explosion of how actually a galaxy has formed, it is also, formed with the remnants of dead stars and the volume of clouds, the dust, etc. So what actually affects the shape of gravity, what affects the shape of galaxy is the gravity and the elements around it. And these galaxies are like broadly divided into three parts, which is spiral galaxies, elliptical galaxies, and irregular galaxies. The spiral galaxy, which is the spiral galaxies have some round arms, and even elliptical galaxies are like quite like oval shape. So when collisions or mergers between galaxies may change spiral galaxies into elliptical galaxies. Their arm just moves around, and when isolated spirals, the spirals of galaxy, when they are isolated, can change the appearance over time as they consume their gas, as the cosmic objects are changing, and as the time is progressing by, the star formation slows down and the spiral arms gradually get less conspicuous or get less condensed. When we talk about spiral galaxies, which is our Andromeda galaxy, the neighbor of our Milky Way galaxy, it has large spiral galaxies and it has large arms. So they consist of a central bulge, something in the center, like in our galaxy it is sun, and in their galaxy, there has to be something in the center which controls the movements of arms and which controls the movement of entire cosmic dust or entire cosmic elements in the space. So, bright
Right.
emission of nebula and formation of different types of galaxy or formation of disk affects the arms of those spiral or elliptical galaxies. Also, elliptical galaxies, the another type, it is very much affected due to the reddish stars or other stars which are present in that galaxy. Because as I mentioned earlier, that stars, any type of stars hold a lot into them, and most of the area around those stars is influenced due to that star. Also, irregular galaxies are like just formed through the space debris and another. organization of cosmic elements around them. So
Right.
the best reason that I can give you for different shapes of galaxies is that it is just caused by the movements in it and the influence of stars.
So when you're talking about all this space, more or less everyone is aware of, but there are some, assumptions and different parts to this. That is the black hole. So what exactly is a black hole?
Black hole is a monster which wants to engulf everything that comes in its way. It can be any type of cosmic element, it can be any type of star. Black hole is just the monster who wants to take everything in, like whatever it can be. And it
Mhm.
is so enormous, so huge, its size varies, and its size is larger than our sun, larger than a globular cluster. Like black holes are very huge.
Mhm.
Also, we cannot like exactly find out them because those are dark in color.
Yeah.
Black hole takes in something, it completely distorts that object. Like let's consider a black hole has consumed a star, so
Mhm.
it distorts the star. The star stretches apart, and all the elements separate, and it
Right.
forms around that black hole. So
Right.
when we see something like that, when we detect something like that through our tools, we understand that yes, black hole is present there. Also, I've read that every second, every minute, new black holes are forming.
Oh.
And when black holes merge, they form a bigger black hole, like
Oh.
a
Okay.
supermassive one.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it is bounded by space time. Black hole is bounded by space time. It is surrounded by infinite density, singularity, where both space and time break down, and space time defining that precise location would cease to exist. Around that point in a region bound by the event horizon, from which neither particles or any form of electromagnetic radiation can escape. Something very mysterious. We never know what is actually happening in it or what is happening beyond that black hole.
Right.
And when you talk about stellar mass, it is just a fancy term used to express mass of star,
Okay.
mass of a heavyweight star, which is around 10 times heavier than our sun.
Okay.
And all those scientists or astronomers or astrophysicists consider that there's nothing much special about our sun because earlier we just knew about our sun and didn't know much about the universe. But when we have gather knowledge about other galaxies, universes, we know that our sun is very normal and there are many suns or stars out there, many planets which revolve around those stars, many galaxies, many unique globular clusters, open clusters, stellar masses which are, eaten by those black holes. This universe is just amazing and it is keeping on working.
Right. Right. So now that we are talking about the spaces and we are talking about the external masses and external objects that are there apart from us, so there is one curiosity to know that do we have life even apart from Earth? That is, do aliens exist? Have they ever visited Earth?
The term of aliens arrived when scientists speculated that has any other form of species visited Earth. That like when they came up with UFOs, unidentified objects. So yes, there is a possibility that aliens might have visited Earth because we also consider that aliens are advanced than humans. Like it's just a consideration. So there can be a possibility that they might have visited Earth. We really don't have a solid proof to prove that thing, and I personally believe, and most of us will believe, that extraterrestrial life or aliens do exist.
Okay.
Just because we haven't reached till them or they haven't shown themselves to us doesn't mean that any other kind of life doesn't exist out there.
All right.
And there can be a possibility that those planets, the exoplanets which revolve around other stars, have possibility to generate life, have possibility to create such elements which support the life of living species. There also is a possibility that aliens not necessarily have to be very developed. Either they can be very unicellular kind of species or multicellular kind of species which are just growing, and maybe the life out there hasn't formed like it has formed on Earth or in
Yeah.
the solar system.
Okay. So this is something that is stored for the future generation to find out with the exact story. Yeah. So
Yes.
one last question is, what is your takeaway for people who want to pursue the career in astrophysics or around space?
It is not just astrophysics, which is the main part in astronomy. There are lots of fields like studying planetary sciences, studying astrobiology, astrochemistry, or even cosmology, planetary sciences, theoretical astrophysics, astronomical spectroscopy. There's a lot in. So it first of all depends on our primary interest, that
Right.
whether an individual is interested in physics, mathematics, biology, or chemistry, or whether the person is interested in finding out the archaeology of universe. Do
Right.
you see? Focus on this term, archaeology of the universe. So, in order which career to pursue in this particular area of knowledge, first of all depends on our primary interest.
Mhm.
Later, if an individual finds out that this is very interesting, he or she must consider or acknowledge the challenges that they are going to face,
Right.
because astrophysics is not something very easy. Not like not all the fields are very easy. That is right, but this is something which is also considered that the jobs over here are not well paid, which is a misconception according to me. It depends on our potential to find out opportunities, to find out more chances where we can thrive in this field. And the major takeaways are that if you think you can do your best in this field, just go for it. Because nowadays it's not just about earning money for living, but it is more about finding your passion in the job you're doing.
Right.
It can be a possibility that an individual is not satisfied with the amount of money he is getting paid for his research or for what he is working or for scientist field. He can also, take up other skills and learn some other skills. It can be related to computer science, it can be related to technology, it can also be related to rocket propulsion. So I
Right.
believe in the present era, it is important to have multiple skill sets. So if you do not thrive in one area, you always have some other skills which will help you to get paid.
Right.
And
Good.
astrophysics is such a subject which takes around 9 to 14 years to study that subject, understand the depth of that subject, pursue your degrees in that subject, earn a PhD, and when you're doing your bachelor's or master's, you have to work with your professors or work like a research assistant and understand, because this is very vast, this is enormous, and not all parts of it are yet discovered. So
Right.
there's always a chance of failing and learning again. And resilience is something which helps us to move forward with this.
Right.
And it is also important for them to search for their opportunities in this field, to search for universities which will help them to progress in their careers, find out other areas of interest if one of their major area of interest doesn't work out. And when it comes to astrophysics or astronomy or related underlying subjects, it is very important to dive deep into intense research and to have that potential to be able to think broader.
Yeah. Which is true. And I think if you stick to something you have promised yourself, and if you are already prepared and you have seen the future that it is going to be something that you have to struggle and take it, it cannot be an easy piece of cake, right? So if you are okay for all the challenges, I think you should go for what you like.
Right. Because what happens with people is that they find out something is interesting and they try to do that. But when they are in the process of doing that, they think
Yeah.
this is not my cup of tea and I'm not going to be able to do it or would not be able to move forward. This seems very challenging and some of them just drop out.
Yeah. Right.
Then they again have to start from 0 to 1.
Yeah. And it was very informative session. I got to learn a lot. So I'm very
Thank
happy.
you so much. I'm glad.